one day closer to that colossal matchup between Ohio State and Purdue in the Horseshoe on Saturday. The number 5 Buckeyes now, technically number 2 Buckeyes in the CFP rankings. It's very confusing the way that the CFP rankings came out, but they're going to play Purdue on Saturday. The CFP rankings do not matter. That's why we didn't talk about them. Andy Backstrom, Tim May, the 41-year vet. Andy's not a 41-year vet. Tim is. Andy's just Andy. I'm just Spencer Holbrook. Let's talk Ohio State. All right, Will Kazmarek, Andy, is progressing. I think Ryan Day said that it was a pretty promising update. He said Mick and the medical staff have given him positive updates. They hope to have him back here in the next couple of weeks. How does that hit your ears?
It's a good thing. He brings a lot of experience. He's really good in run blocking. I think they missed that a little bit against Nebraska, but I thought against Penn State, the tight ends blocked really well.
Yeah.
You know, G. Scott had one of the game-ending blocks there to set up that victory. Also, Bennett Christian, I think, has really stepped up in an increased role. You've also saw Jelani Thurman make a great catch on a 4th and 1. Who knows if he's in the game, that opportunity, if the rotation looks differently with Will Kazmarek. So they'd obviously love to have him back. He's a huge part of this offense when he's playing right around the same snap share that G. Scott has. But I do think, just like other injuries we've seen hit this team, it's actually benefited Ohio State as far as the depth and the development of that depth.
Yeah, you got to really re-watch the game to notice Will Kazmarek's absence, but you do see a little bit, even if it's just small, a drop off in the tight end blocking. That's not a knock on those guys. It's just how physical Will Kazmarek is. Ryan Day did say, Tim, that the tight ends have been, quote, solid since then. They're still working on that unit, but I think in a time like this, you're getting guys reps. You got a couple games here where you probably can get away with it. And then if you can roll Will Kazmarek back out there for the home stretch of the season, that's probably an added bonus.
Yeah. I'm trying to be diplomatic here. I mean, I think Will Kazmarek is a vital part of this football team, but he's not available right now.
Yeah.
So it's basically, what are you getting done with those guys? And I thought all those guys stepped up last week. I mean, what does it do for a Jelani Thurman? His circus of catch as that was, he finally snared it as it's coming down his shoulder. To have a catch like that in that moment of a game of that magnitude, what it does for him is ridiculous. I think G. Scott has played really well for the most part all season. I think he's blocked extremely well. Ben Christian, same way. I mean, he's a guy we've totally forgot about last year for obvious reasons. But I think those guys are all contributing, but especially the last 2 guys I talked about there. But when they get Will Kazmarek back, it'll be a bonus. But there's no reason to hasten that. I mean, if in fact it's a shoulder injury of the magnitude you're kind of hearing it is, one more day, one more game day is not going to hurt anything in terms. It's going to help him in terms of coming back much more solid.
Could it be Indiana? Could it be Michigan? Big Ten title game? Maybe
Indiana is a showdown game.
Yeah.
Anybody who thinks it's not going to be hasn't been paying attention.
Yeah, so could they get him back for that? Could they get him back from Michigan? Is it a Big Ten title game, college football playoff scenario? We'll see. I don't know. The other injury report that's obviously more pressing here is Tyleik Williams, who Ryan Day gave the kiss of death to, said he will be likely available. He did not say, last week he said, hey, is Lathan Ransom playing? Yes. This week it's Tyleik will be likely available, Andy. And after the injury there and not coming back in the game, I think he could have probably come back in if Ohio State hadn't milked the rest of that 5 minutes and 13 seconds off the clock at Happy Valley. Maybe he can come back in the game. But you're playing a 1-7 Purdue team that isn't very good. It seems like 91 might not be freed this week.
It's probably in case of emergency situation, like I guess you said, available, but they probably don't need him in a game like this. And that's actually, again, we talked about it with Will Kazmarek being out and other guys stepping up. We saw this defensive line, especially the interior, step up in that goal line stand, whether it was Caden McDonald blowing up that center. And I know, Tim, you were asking about that today. You can get into that in a little bit. But also, Hero Canoe was in there, too. And you're talking about guys that had an opportunity to play earlier in the season when Tyleik Williams was out. And let's be honest, didn't play as well as maybe we expected. Jason Moore is also in that category. Tywone Malone, go down the line. This is another opportunity if Tyleik Williams doesn't play against Purdue, just to rest up and heal up to get to 100%. These guys get more run, and they're going to be super important down the stretch of the season.
Yeah, and it was vital what happened on that goal line stand because he was not in the game. And the fact that his brethren, in essence, were able to get the job done without him, that just stokes that confidence fire under this defense, which I think is growing by the minute. Yeah, when Penn State's tight end, Tyler Warren, got the ball down to the 3-yard line before he was knocked out of bounds by Denzel Burke. You know, woe is me. I mean, I'm sure it was going through a lot of Buckeye fans' minds, along with maybe some of the players. But then they bowed up and made the plays when they had to without Tyleik Williams in the game. That just adds to the confidence of all those guys who were in there. Like you brought up, I mean, you know, Hero Canoe, he did not sink.
Yeah.
Under the pressure. He became one of the heroes. But Caden McDonald, oh my goodness, wow. What a play by him. I mean, it reminded me of Michigan's last defensive play against Alabama in the college football playoff semifinals last year. Everybody harped on the slightly low snap by Seth McLaughlin, but in fact, what happened on that play was Michigan's defensive end tackle shoved Alabama's right tackle right back into Jalen Milroe. That's what blew up the play. So when you get effort like a Caden McDonald in a moment like that, like he said, it kind of sent chills through him. You know, he was thinking about his mom when that happened and everything else. But you got to make 4 of those plays, not just one, right? And that's what they did. And so I think they're in pretty good shape there in the middle of that defense compared to what we might have been thinking going right into the season back in August.
I mean, yeah, if Tyleik had gone down the week before the Oregon game and that Iowa game, and you're thinking you're going to go play Oregon on the road after what we had seen from these backup defensive tackles,
correct,
you're probably thinking, this is not going to be good. Now, all of a sudden, and I mean really all of a sudden, because if Tyleik Williams does not get hurt there, I don't know how many of those other guys are in there. I know Tyleik is in there to try to stymie, you know, Penn State getting those 3 last yards to get into the end zone. So, you know, it's kind of changed everything here, those guys making those plays, because confidence is contagious. Confidence translates across weeks. And Caden McDonald all of a sudden has a lot of confidence. Here, a guy like Hero Canoe, I'm sure, we didn't talk to him tonight, but I'm sure he's got a lot of confidence now moving forward after making those kind of plays. And the guys who line up beside him too, Jack Sawyer, JT Tuimoloau, you see those guys jogging in the game, and you might think a little differently now. Like, okay, like these guys, I know they can get this done. I've been in the trenches with those guys in the biggest moments. So I'm excited to see what they do.
And by the way, throw a couple other names in there who played well during that game, Mitchell Melton and Kenyatta Jackson. I mean, they flashed, man, big time. I think they feel pretty good about this defensive front right now compared to maybe what a lot of people were basically down on them coming out of the Oregon game.
Yeah.
You know, they've robbed Peter to pay Paul to get some sacks, but they have done it. I'm talking about the group up front, and then the way this defensive line has played strong in critical moments.
Yeah, and then I would add Edric Houston in there, who's starting to come along and get some more playing time. 5 snaps last week, 6 snaps this past weekend. So you're getting more and more momentum from this defensive line. The last thing that I have, I can throw it over to you afterward, but I talked to Denzel Burke tonight. It's the first time we've talked to him since the Oregon game. He was asked directly what went wrong in the Oregon game. He said, I'm pretty sure he just said bad night, next question. He had quite literally said next question after just a couple words, which is fine. But then he talked about his confidence not being shaken, the way that he, you know, knows that he can bounce back, the enthusiasm he's been playing with the last couple weeks. He's made a few plays behind the line of scrimmage and really gotten animated. He did the seatbelt strap after his pass breakup against Penn State. I probably sound like the oldest person on earth after saying that. But he did that celebration. That shows a little bit of that confidence starting to come back in him. I don't think he ever lost it, Andy, but it is a good sign when you see number 10 out there making plays after a rough outing last month.
Absolutely. He's going to be so important down the stretch in the postseason. They'll probably face Oregon again if everything goes their way.
He did. He said we'll see him again.
Yeah. Well, and if they do, at that point, they might have Tej Johnson back, who's hurt right now. But, you know, Evan Stewart, you know, Trayshawn Holden, go down the line. Those are some of the best receivers in the Big Ten. Kind of give Ohio State a bit of a run for its money. Probably not quite there, but still some of the best receivers in the Big Ten. And then if you get past that game, you know, going into the college football playoff, you're going to face a lot of good receivers across the country. So they're going to need him to be at his best. I have a couple other defensive notes. One thing that I think is really interesting is that throughout this re-engineering of the defense, right, to maybe the casual eye, and maybe my first instinct was to say, hey, things got more complicated. Like they're sending more 5-6-man pressures. They're doing more stunts on the defensive line. Jim Knowles is kind of tapping back into what we saw at Oklahoma State with some of that creativity. All the players have talked about how things got simplified. Right. And it's just about playing fast and staying in your assignments, being aligned correctly. Not being stagnant was the word that Cody Simon used a couple weeks ago. And Jim Knowles even talked about that this week about going back to the basics. So in ways, yes, maybe at first glance things look a little bit more complicated, but to them everything's more simple.
Yeah.
And I think
that stuff was all available to them, whatever they're doing, you know what I mean? Was all available to them all along. Now you're featuring some stuff that you weren't featuring before.
They're doing the things they do best the most, basically.
Yeah.
I think that's just an interesting distinction, because maybe I was wrong in reading that, but I guess my first instinct was, oh, they're mixing things up. They're making things more complex, but really it's kind of the opposite.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't know what else to say other than the thing that stood out about Jim Knowles and his defenses at Oklahoma State. It wasn't so much wild kind of blitzing. I mean, you would drop a guy off in zone coverage. You're still doing that. They're dropping guys off into zone coverage, bringing the delayed blitz, by the way, last week for Cody Simon, especially on one play in particular, was a sack, worked marvels. But the bottom line is you're letting the athletes play, meaning get a step up field, disrupt. Just like we talked about Caden McDonald. You shove the center back 2 yards into the backfield, you have disrupted that play. No matter what play it is, but especially a goal line play, you have disrupted it. He was just all about taking over and making it happen. There was no big stunt there or anything. It was just guys getting up, getting a little crease and going for it.
They call that mano y mano, Tim. You win the battle.
Actually, hand in hand. See, it should be mano a mano, hand to hand.
One of my favorite things, Andy, and I'm doing this on camera, is when Tim says, I don't have much else to say, and then he says, other than, and then we get a Tim.
Well, you prompted me.
Well, we didn't talk about Jeremiah Smith, and he was over there talking to us back there.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is important to note. He did admit that play that was a deep ball was on him. He said he didn't run through his route. He actually thought the ball was going to Carnell Tate. That's the second time this season that Jeremiah Smith has readily admitted, hey, I didn't do something correctly. And I think for a true freshman that's gotten all the attention in the world, not that he necessarily loves that attention, he is very quick to say when he's done something wrong, and he moves past it and learns from it. And I think that, for someone who's had such an awesome freshman season, to be so humble about those moments, I think is important.
Yeah, the good thing is not to give it lip service. I mean, it's kind of like him saying the sun is hot, because if you watch the replay, he runs and he does his thing. He's thinking his thing is to just absorb the attention of what ended up being two guys deep, and you could see him turn and just slow down, waiting for the play to be thrown to, I think, Carnell Tate, or whoever was back behind him. And instead, Will saw something there. He saw two safeties standing there, or a safety standing there. Jeremiah can just bust right by him, which is, he threw a great ball on that play. That
Perfect
was a great
deep ball.
pass.
Yeah.
But what's not to like about Jeremiah Smith? I mean, he gives us good answers. He gives us thoughtful answers. He looks like he's been doing this for decades. And then on top of that, he's a hellacious football player. I mean, crazy.
Yeah, he's the best freshman receiver in Ohio State history, according
he's
to
huge, ladies and gentlemen, too. He's huge.
According to the statistics. This show probably running a little over compared to what we thought we were going to do, but that's what happens when we get all three of us yapping. That's Tim May, the 41-year vet. That's Andy Backstrom. I'm Spencer Holbrook. Ohio State, Purdue. Saturday in the Horseshoe at noon. Big noon kickoff. Gus and Joel. You're getting your fill of Gus and Joel the last 6 weeks of the football season. It continues with the Buckeyes and Boilermakers in the Horseshoe. Again, that's Tim May. That's Andy Backstrom. I'm Spencer Holbrook. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you guys over in the Horseshoe on Saturday for Ohio State and Purdue. But first, you know the drill. We'll see you on Friday for bold predictions right here at LettermenRow.com.